we often think life is all about what we can get. Success, recognition, wealth, or some sort of external proof that we've made it. We chase these things, don't we? We push ourselves harder and harder, hoping that if we just work a little more, grind a little longer, or force things to happen, we'll finally find peace. But have you noticed? That kind of peace doesn't seem to last. It's like pouring water into a cup with a hole at the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it's never enough. I thought the same way once. I thought if I could just prove to the world that I was capable, if I could overcome my limitations in some grand, undeniable way, then I'd finally feel whole, then I'd finally feel rich, not just in money, but in purpose, in life, in joy. But every step forward seemed to come with a new wave of doubts, a new mountain to climb. You might be thinking, Nick, you don't understand. My challenges are different. My struggles are unique. If only you knew what I'm going through. And I hear you. I don't know your exact story. I don't know the pain you've endured or the battles you're fighting right now. But here's what I do know. Pain is universal, and so is hope. So thank you for joining the faith. It means the world to me. Let me tell you about a moment in my life when I thought hope was out of reach. I was 8 years old, sitting in my room, staring at the world outside the window. I saw other kids running, playing, laughing, and I sat there wondering why I wasn't like them. I remember thinking, what's the point of my life? What can I possibly offer the world when I can't even tie my own shoes? But as I grew older, I started to see something incredible. The very thing I thought disqualified me from living a full life was the thing that gave me a unique perspective, a gift I could offer the world. You see, I stopped focusing on what I didn't have and started focusing on what I did have. That shift, that change in perspective was the beginning of something extraordinary. And that's what I want for you. I want you to stop looking at your life through the lens of what's missing. Stop telling yourself the story that you're not enough or that your circumstances define you. Because they don't. What defines you is what you choose to do with the hand you've been dealt. Now let's pause for a moment. I want you to ask yourself a question. What's holding you back? Is it fear? Is it the voice of someone from your past who told you that you'd never amount to anything? Is it the pressure to fit into a mold that was never meant for you? Whatever it is, I want you to name it. Say it out loud. Write it down. Because naming it is the first step to overcoming it. And here's the truth. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Sometimes the first step is simply deciding that you're not going to stay where you are. Sometimes it's about taking one small step forward, even when you can't see the whole staircase. Because it's actually, I remember when I started speaking publicly, I was terrified. I thought, what if they laugh at me? What if they look at me and see nothing but my disability? But you know what? I did it anyway. And it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that's what people connected with. Not some polished version of me, but the real, raw, authentic me. And that's what the world needs from you too. It doesn't need you to be perfect. It doesn't need you to have all the answers. It just needs you to show up as you are with all your imperfections and insecurities. Because when you do, you give others permission to do the same. Let me tell you a secret. The richest people in the world aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the most gratitude. They're the ones who can look at their lives, even in the midst of challenges, and say, I am blessed. And here's the thing. Gratitude isn't something you feel after you've achieved your goals or reached your destination. It's something you practice along the way. Eva has a very special place in my heart. Eva has a very special place in my heart for the people who believe you. Every day, I wake up and thank God for my life. Not because it's easy, not because I don't face challenges, but because I know that every breath I take is a gift. And when you start to see life that way, everything changes. You stop chasing things that don't matter, and you stop focusing on what does. You stop focusing on what does. You start investing in relationships and making a difference and leaving a legacy that goes beyond yourself. And that, my friends, is what it means to be truly rich. You're standing in a crowded room, surrounded by the noise of laughter, chatter, and clinking glasses. On the surface, everything seems perfect. People smile at you, shake your hand, and tell you how successful you are. But deep down, you feel something missing. An emptiness you can't explain. You've done everything the world told you to do, worked harder, achieved more, even sacrificed things you once loved in the name of success. Yet here you are, wondering why it still feels like something's missing. Ooh, wow. Why? I've been there. I know what it's like to feel trapped by the very life you thought you wanted. I remember sitting alone, staring at my reflection, asking, is this it? Is this what my life is supposed to be? And in that moment, I realized something that would change everything. Not just how I saw my life, but how I lived it. You see, life has a way of making us believe that the answers are somewhere out there. We're told to hustle harder, climb higher, and achieve more. We're taught to measure our worth by the size of our bank account, the number of followers we have, or the job title on our business card. But let me ask you something. What happens when you get all of it and it still doesn't feel like enough? That's the question I had to face. For years, I thought if I could just prove myself, prove that I was more than my challenges, more than my limitations, then I'd finally feel whole. I told myself, if I can achieve something extraordinary, maybe then I'll be enough. And so I pushed. I worked harder than ever, trying to earn the approval of others, to prove to the world that I wasn't a failure. But here's what no one tells you. Success, no matter how big or small, will never fill the void inside you if you don't understand what truly matters. And let me tell you, I learned that the hard way. It was a moment, a quiet, humbling moment, when I realized I had been looking in all the wrong places. I remember sitting in complete silence, the kind that forces you to confront yourself. No distractions, no excuses, just me and the raw truth of my life. It was there in that stillness that I began to understand something that had been right in front of me all along. I realized that life isn't about what you achieve, it's about who you become. It's not about how much you accumulate, but how much you give. And it's not about how perfect your life looks on the outside, but how aligned it feels on the inside. Think about it. How many people do you know who seem to have everything, but they're miserable? They're successful by every worldly standard, yet they're empty, disconnected, and lost. And then there are those who, by society's definition, have very little, but they radiate joy, peace, and purpose. What's the difference? It's not money, it's not fame, it's not power. It's perspective. It's understanding that true wealth isn't something you earn, it's something you discover. And here's the good news. That kind of wealth is available to everyone. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter what you've been through. You don't need a perfect life to find it. All you need is the willingness to look within and ask yourself, what really matters? I know this might feel uncomfortable. Trust me, I've been there. When I was younger, I was consumed by what I didn't have. I looked at the world and thought, if only I were like them, then I'd be happy. I believed that my limitations were the reason I couldn't live a full life. But the truth is, it wasn't my circumstances holding me back. It was my mindset. And that's the first shift I want to share with you today. Stop focusing on what you don't have and start focusing on what you do. Because the moment you shift your perspective, everything changes. Let me take you to a moment in my life when this became real. I was speaking at an event, sharing my story with a group of students. Afterward, a young girl came up to me, tears streaming down her face. She told me how she had been struggling with her own challenges, feeling like her life didn't matter. She said, Nick, if you can find a way to live with joy, maybe I can too. In that moment, I realized something profound. My life wasn't about me. It was about the impact I could have on others. And that, my friends, is the greatest wealth you can ever find. We live in a world where success is painted as a finish line, a destination you reach after ticking all the boxes society lays out for you. Go to school, get good grades, land a high-paying job, buy the house, the car, and maybe, just maybe, you'll finally feel fulfilled. That's the story we've been told. And for years, I believed it too. But have you ever noticed something about this so-called ladder of success? The higher you climb, the steeper it feels. Every step seems to demand more from you, more time, more energy, more sacrifices. And just when you think you've reached the top, you realize there's always another rung, always another goal, another milestone, another reason why you're not there yet. And you think it's like running on a treadmill that never stops. You're moving, but you're not going anywhere. And you start to wonder, is this really what life is about? Is this endless chase supposed to make me happy? I used to believe that success was the answer to everything. I thought if I could achieve more, make more money, earn more recognition, prove my worth, then I'd finally feel complete. And so I chased it relentlessly. I worked harder than ever, sacrificing sleep, relationships, and even my health in the process, because I thought that's what it took to be someone. But let me tell you something most people won't. Success is a moving target. It's always one step ahead of where you are. And the moment you achieve one goal, there's another waiting for you. A bigger house, a better car, more followers, more status. It's never enough. And that's the trap. That's the illusion. We're taught to believe that happiness lies in the next achievement, the next paycheck, the next promotion. But the truth, it doesn't. Because happiness isn't something you find at the end of the road. It's something you create along the way. I remember the day this hit me like a ton of bricks. I was in the middle of a speaking tour, flying from one city to the next, staying in fancy hotels and speaking to sold-out crowds. On the outside, it looked like I had everything. People were congratulating me, telling me how inspiring I was, but on the inside, I felt empty. One night, sitting alone in my hotel room, I looked out at the city lights and asked myself, why doesn't this feel like enough? Why do I still feel like something's missing? And then it dawned on me, I was chasing the wrong thing. You see, the world measures success by what you can take. How much money you can earn, how much power you can hold, how much attention you can get. But real success, the kind that fills your soul, is about what you can give. It's about how you can use your gifts, your time, and your resources to make a difference. That's the shift that changed everything for me. I stopped chasing the things the world told me I needed, and I started focusing on what really matters. I started asking myself, how can I serve? How can I add value? How can I make someone's life better today? And let me tell you, the moment you stop chasing success and start seeking significance, you'll experience a kind of wealth that money can't buy. You'll feel a sense of purpose, of fulfillment, of joy that no paycheck or trophy could ever give you. Think about it. How many people spend their whole lives climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall? Don't let that be you. Don't fall for the illusion that success is about what you have or what you've achieved. Because the truth is, success is about who you are and how you show up for the people around you. There's something about hitting rock bottom that forces you to see life differently. That was me. I was just 8 years old when I first faced that question. 8 years old, sitting in my room, wondering why I was even alive. I couldn't understand why I had to be born this way, without arms and legs. I looked at other kids running, playing, and living their lives so effortlessly, and I felt like an outsider. I felt invisible, unworthy, and broken. And I remember the day when it all became too much. The bullying at school, the stares from strangers, the feeling that I was a burden on my family. It all piled up until I felt like I couldn't carry it anymore. I thought about ending it all. I thought about escaping the pain, the shame, the questions I couldn't answer. But as I sat there on the brink of giving up, something inside me whispered, hold on. Just hold on. It wasn't a loud voice. It wasn't a lightning bolt from the sky. It was quiet, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make me pause. And in that pause, something shifted. I didn't have a grand revelation or a miraculous transformation, but I had a choice to keep going even if I didn't know how. A choice to believe that maybe, just maybe, my life could be more than the pain I was feeling at that moment. Looking back, I realized that moment was a turning point. It didn't fix everything overnight, but it planted a seed, a tiny, fragile seed of hope. And over time, that seed began to grow. You see, the lowest points in our lives are often where we discover our greatest strength. They force us to confront who we are, what we value, and what we're capable of. They strip away the noise and reveal the core of our being. And while those moments are painful, they're also powerful, because it's in the darkness that we learn to find our light. I didn't know it then, but the very things I thought disqualified me from living a full life, my disability, my struggles, my pain, would one day become the things that defined my purpose. They would become the platform from which I could reach others, inspire others, and show others that they too are capable of more than they could ever imagine. So if you're in that place right now, if you're feeling lost, broken, or like you have nothing left to give, I want you to know this: you're not alone. And this moment, as painful as it may be, is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of something extraordinary. Because here's the truth. You can't have a breakthrough without a breaking point. You can't discover your strength without first facing your weakness. And you can't step into your purpose without walking through the fire that refines you. So, when I look back at my life, I don't see the pain as something that held me back. I see it as something that propelled me forward. It taught me resilience. It taught me empathy. And most importantly, it taught me that my worth isn't determined by what I have or what I can do. It's determined by who I am and how I choose to show up in the world. So here's my question for you. What will you do with your breaking point? Will you let it define you, or will you let it transform you? Will you let it keep you down, or will you use it as a stepping stone to rise? Because I promise you this, the greatest breakthroughs in life come when you decide that your story isn't over. When you choose to turn the page and write a new chapter, even when it feels like you can't. Change rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with a parade or fireworks. It often arrives quietly in the form of a thought, a moment, or a realization that shifts something deep within you. For me, that shift came when I began to see the world and my life through a new lens. Up until that point, I had been living with a mindset that focused on everything I lacked. I saw my disability as a limitation, my challenges as barriers, and my life as incomplete. I believed that my value was determined by what I could achieve or what I could prove to others. And let me tell you, that belief was exhausting. And let me tell you, that belief was exhausting. But then something happened. It wasn't a sudden epiphany or a dramatic moment of clarity. It was more like a subtle ripple that started in my heart and began to spread. I started to ask myself different questions. Instead of asking, why me? I began to ask, what can I do with what I have? Instead of focusing on what was missing, I started to see what was still there. You see, life is less about what happens to us and more about how we choose to respond. Two people can face the exact same challenge, and yet their experiences can be completely different based on how they perceive it. One sees failure, the other sees an opportunity to learn. One sees loss, the other sees a chance to rebuild. One sees pain, the other sees growth. When I began to see my life this way, it was like putting on a new pair of glasses. The world didn't change, but how I saw it did. And that made all the difference. I started to see my challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities. I saw my story, not just the good parts, but the hard, messy, painful parts, as a tool to connect with others. I realized that the very things I had spent so long trying to hide or overcome were the things that gave my life meaning. Take a moment and think about your own life. What's the story you've been telling yourself? Are you focusing on what's missing, what's broken, or what's holding you back? Or are you looking at what you still have, what you've already overcome, and the potential that's waiting within you? Here's a truth that changed my life. You have more power than you realize. You may not be able to control every circumstance, but you can control how you respond. And your response can transform even the most difficult situations into opportunities for growth, connection, and purpose. I'll never forget the day I decided to step on stage for the first time to share my story. I was terrified. I thought, what if they don't understand? What if they see me as just a man without arms and legs and nothing more? But then I thought about the people who might be sitting in the audience, feeling lost, broken, or alone, just like I once did. And I realized that if my story could give even one person hope, it would be worth it. That decision to focus on what I could give rather than what I feared set me free. It taught me that life isn't about being perfect or having it all figured out. It's about showing up as you are with what you have and giving it your all. And let me tell you, the moment you start living from that place, from a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity, you begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to find purpose in places you never thought to look. And you begin to understand that wealth isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you contribute. So I challenge you to shift your perspective. Start seeing your life not through the lens of what's missing, but through the lens of what's possible. Start asking yourself, what can I do with what I have? Because when you do, you'll discover that the answers you've been searching for were within you all along. There's a powerful truth about life that many people overlook. Your life's greatest impact doesn't come from what you achieve for yourself. It comes from what you do for others. It's not the size of your bank account or the accolades on your wall that define your legacy. It's the lives you touch, the hope you inspire, and the difference you make. For a long time, I thought fulfillment was something I had to earn. I believed it was tied to success, to recognition, to proving my worth. But the more I achieved, the emptier I felt. It was only when I began to shift my focus outward toward the people I could help that I discovered what true wealth really looks like. Let me take you back to one of the moments that changed my life forever. I was invited to speak at a school for students with disabilities. As I looked out at the audience, I saw faces that reminded me of my younger self. Kids who felt like they didn't belong, who struggled to see their own worth. After my talk, a boy wheeled himself up to me. He looked me in the eye and said, "Nick, you showed me that my life matters." I'll never forget the way his voice trembled or the tears in his eyes. And in that moment, something clicked. It wasn't about me. It was about him. It was about him. It was about them. It was about them. It was about them. It was about using my story, my pain, my journey to help others see their own potential. That's when I realized our lives are not just about us. Every challenge you faced, every hardship you've endured, every lesson you've learned, it all has a purpose beyond you. It's meant to be shared, to uplift, to inspire. But here's the thing, most people are so focused on themselves that they miss this opportunity. They're chasing their own goals, their own dreams, their own version of success without realizing that true fulfillment comes when you stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give?" Think about it. The most powerful moments in your life, the ones that stick with you, that fill your heart with a sense of meaning, aren't the ones where you achieve something for yourself. They're the moments where you made a difference for someone else. Maybe it was a time you listened to a friend who was struggling, or when you stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves, or when you gave your time, your energy, your love to someone who needed it. Those moments don't just change the other person's life. They change yours too. Because when you give, you're reminded of what really matters. You're reminded that life isn't about the things we can accumulate or the titles we can earn. It's about connection. It's about love. It's about leaving the world a little better than you found it. And here's a beautiful thing. You don't have to be rich, famous, or successful to make an impact. Every single one of us has the power to change someone's life. Sometimes it's in the smallest gestures, a kind word, a helping hand, a moment of understanding. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that significance doesn't come from what you have. It comes from what you give. It's not about having the perfect life. It's about using your imperfect life to create something beautiful for others. So I want to challenge you today. Look around you. Who can you help? What can you give? How can you use your story, your experiences, your pain to make someone else's burden a little lighter? Because when you do, you'll find something extraordinary. You'll find that the more you give, the richer your life becomes. Not in material wealth, but in the things that truly matter. Joy, purpose, and connection. And point. Life has a way of reminding us that we are not in control of everything. No matter how hard we try to plan, no matter how meticulously we prepare, there will always be things beyond our control. The twists, the turns, the challenges, and the unexpected obstacles, they're all part of the journey. And if you're anything like me, you might have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to control everything. I spent so many years thinking that if I could just make everything perfect, if I could just organize every detail of my life, I could finally be happy, finally be fulfilled. But what I've learned is this: trying to control everything often keeps you from experiencing the life you were meant to live. Let me explain what I mean. When I was younger, I thought I had to control everything about my life to make it worthwhile. I thought I had to control my circumstances, my achievements, even my emotions. I thought if I could just get the right things to fall into place, if I could fix my body, my challenges, my imperfections, then I'd finally be happy. But that mindset only created more stress, more frustration, and more disappointment. It wasn't until I had to face the hard truth that I realized control isn't everything. I began to understand that true peace comes not from controlling life, but from learning how to embrace it, uncertainties, messiness, and all. So, you see, for many years I resisted the very things that made me who I am. I resisted my disability, my struggles, and my imperfections. I thought there was something to hide or fight against, something that kept me from being normal. I thought if I could control the narrative, if I could hide my differences and present a version of myself that fit into society's mold, I would finally be accepted and everything would fall into place. There's an incredible power in self-belief. It's something that can completely transform the course of your life. But here's the thing. Self-belief isn't something that magically appears overnight. It's not something you can just wake up with and expect it to carry you through the tough times. Self-belief is built slowly and steadily through actions, thoughts, and choices. It's developed when you choose to trust yourself, even when the world around you doubts you. When I was growing up, I didn't have the luxury of seeing many people like me. I didn't have role models who shared my experiences, who faced the same challenges, or who could show me that a life without arms and legs could still be full of joy, success, and meaning. I was told in various ways that I was limited, that I couldn't expect to live a full life, that I would always be less than. And for a long time, I believed those messages. It's easy to let the world's doubts shape how you see yourself. It's easy to listen to the negativity, the criticism, and the judgment. I'm sure you've been there. People telling you that you can't, that you won't, that it's impossible. Those voices can be loud and they can be persistent. But here's what I've learned. Those voices only have power if you let them. Your greatest enemy isn't the external forces that challenge you. It's the internal voice that tells you that you can't. It's the voice that feeds your fear, your doubt, your insecurities. And the longer you listen to it, the weaker your belief in yourself becomes. I remember a moment in my life when I was at a crossroads. I had been struggling with this internal battle for a while, fighting between the voice that believed in me and the voice that told me I wasn't enough. It was a tough battle because there was so much evidence stacked up against me. The world wasn't exactly kind to me. People weren't exactly welcoming or understanding. But in that moment, I realized something powerful. If I didn't believe in myself, nobody else would either. And so I made a choice. I chose to believe in my worth, in my potential, in my ability to make a difference. I stopped waiting for others to give me permission to succeed. I stopped looking for validation from external sources. Instead, I started building my self-belief from within. I started making decisions based on my own conviction, not based on fear or doubt. And slowly, over time, that belief began to grow. Self-belief doesn't mean that you think you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you're never afraid or that you always have everything figured out. No, self-belief is about trusting that even when you don't know how, you'll find a way. It's about trusting that you're capable of navigating life's challenges, even when those challenges seem insurmountable. The truth is, you're far more capable than you give yourself credit for. You've been through hard things and you've survived them. You've faced obstacles and you've overcome them. You've been knocked down, but you've gotten back up. That's evidence that you have the strength, the resilience, and the ability to achieve far more than you may realize. But self-belief doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you start taking action. It happens when you push through fear, when you silence the doubts, and when you take that first step, even though you're terrified. Self-belief is built when you keep going, even when you don't have all the answers. Number one, I encourage you to take a moment today to ask yourself, what would my life look like if I truly believed in myself? What could I achieve if I stopped listening to my doubts and started trusting in my abilities? What could I do if I gave myself permission to succeed? Because here's what I know to be true. When you believe in yourself, when you trust in your own potential, you unlock doors you never even knew existed. You begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You start to take chances, to dream bigger, to reach higher, and to create the life you've always wanted. So stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you're enough. You are enough. Right now, you have everything inside you that you need to create the life you want. The only thing standing between you and your dreams is the belief that you can achieve them. One of the most important lessons I've learned in life is that you don't have to do it alone. We often have this belief that to succeed, we need to be self-sufficient, that we need to be strong enough to face everything by ourselves. We see others succeeding, achieving, and we think they did it all on their own, grinding, hustling, and overcoming challenges single-handedly. But the truth is, no one succeeds alone. I used to think that asking for help was a sign of weakness, that relying on others meant I wasn't strong enough to do it myself. There was a time in my life when I tried to carry the weight of everything on my own. My challenges, my pain, my goals. And I thought I had to do it all by myself to prove my worth. But what I didn't realize is that strength isn't about doing everything by yourself. It's about having the courage to lean on others, to accept support, and to allow others to be part of your journey. This was something I had to learn the hard way. There were moments when I was struggling, feeling lost, feeling overwhelmed, and feeling like I wasn't enough. But during those times, I realized I didn't have to face it all alone. I had people around me who cared, who wanted to support me, and who wanted to see me succeed. But the real breakthrough came when I opened myself up to them. I began asking for help, seeking advice, and allowing others to show up for me in ways I hadn't imagined before. Let me tell you, asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It takes courage to admit that you don't have all the answers, that you can't do it all on your own. And when you're able to let go of the pride that holds you back and allow others to lift you up, something powerful happens. You open the door to collaboration, to community, to connection. In fact, the people around you, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your mentors, can be your greatest assets. They're the ones who offer you perspective when you're too close to see things clearly. They're the ones who help you take the next step when you're paralyzed by fear. They're the ones who celebrate your wins with you, but more importantly, they're the ones who help you pick yourself up when you fall. This is something I've witnessed throughout my life, especially in my work with people facing challenges of their own. The power of community, the power of lifting each other up is something that can't be underestimated. We rise together when we share our struggles, our wisdom, and our experiences. We build each other up in ways we could never do alone. Interlope. And here's the beauty of it. When you allow others to help you, you give them permission to do the same. You show them that it's okay to lean on someone else, to ask for help, and to embrace the strength that comes from connection. You create a culture of support where vulnerability becomes a strength, not a weakness. In my own journey, I've had mentors who guided me, friends who supported me, and strangers who became some of my greatest advocates. They didn't just help me get to where I am, they helped me realize that I don't have to have all the answers. They taught me that the power of connection is something that makes us all stronger. So, I want to ask you today, who are the people in your life who want to support you? Who are the people you can turn to when things get tough? Don't be afraid to lean on them. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. It's not about being weak. It's about being strong enough to acknowledge that we can't do everything on our own. We're not meant to. Life is too big to carry alone. When you open yourself up to the support of others, you create a network of strength, resilience, and love. And that's when the real magic happens. You'll discover that when you let others in, when you allow them to be part of your journey, you'll accomplish far more than you ever could have on your own. We all face hardships, challenges, and moments where life seems overwhelming. It's easy to get bogged down by everything that isn't going right. We tend to focus on the struggles, the pain, the obstacles, and before we know it, our entire perspective is shaped by what's wrong instead of what's right. But here's the thing that can shift everything for you. Gratitude has the power to change your life. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good idea. It's a mindset, a way of looking at the world that transforms everything. The moment I began to focus on what I was grateful for, my entire perspective shifted. Instead of focusing on my limitations, on the things I couldn't change, I started looking at the things I could be thankful for. The people who supported me, the lessons I learned, the opportunities I had, and yes, even the challenges that helped me grow. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you should ignore the struggles or pretend everything is perfect. Life is messy and things don't always go the way we plan. But what I've come to realize is that even in the hardest moments, there's always something to be grateful for. There's always a silver lining, always something good hiding in the shadows of our difficulties. The first step in embracing gratitude is acknowledging that you can't control everything. You can't always change your circumstances, but you can change how you respond to them. When life knocks you down, and it will, you have a choice. You can either stay stuck in your frustration, your anger, or your disappointment, or you can choose to find something, anything to be grateful for. For example, I often reflect on my own life and the circumstances I've had to face. Being born without arms and legs. It's easy to look at that and see it as a burden, a challenge that seems insurmountable. But the truth is, it has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. It has forced me to see the world differently, to develop resilience, and to approach life with an attitude of gratitude. I'm thankful for the love and support I've received, for the ability to speak and share my story, and for the strength I've developed over the years. These things have made me who I am. It's a mindset shift. Gratitude isn't just about saying thank you for the good things. It's about embracing all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's about seeing every experience as an opportunity for growth, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. Gratitude can even transform the way you see the people in your life. When you choose to be grateful for the relationships you have, whether it's family, friends, or even acquaintances, you shift your perspective from taking them for granted to truly appreciating them. You start to notice the small acts of kindness, the words of encouragement, the moments of love, and the gestures that, when put together, form the foundation of a life well lived. But the beauty of gratitude is that it's a practice. It's something you can cultivate every day. And the more you practice gratitude, the more natural it becomes. You begin to notice the good, the beauty, and the blessings that surround you, even in the darkest of times. I challenge you to start small. Each day, find one thing you are thankful for. It could be something big or something small. Maybe it's the smile of a stranger, the warmth of the sun, the support of a loved one, or simply the ability to breathe deeply. As you do this, you'll begin to notice that your perspective shifts. The weight of your challenges starts to lighten as you realize that the good far outweighs the bad. Gratitude is a powerful tool, one that can help you transform your mindset, your relationships, and your overall well-being. It doesn't mean you ignore the hardships or pretend everything is easy. It means you acknowledge them, face them, and find the strength to rise above them. Gratitude gives you the perspective to see that no matter what, there is always something worth celebrating. And it has the beauty of it. The more you focus on gratitude, the more you attract it into your life. The more thankful you are, the more abundance you'll find. It's like a magnet that draws positivity, joy, and love to you. So, Greg, let's